Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And it's Billboard Breakdown. So I've been predicting for some time now that the Hot 100 would be hit with a pretty major shift that would knock things loose, really shake up that status quo. And yet, somehow, I think we got the worst of both options with this particular week. With the top 10 staying mostly static, the majority of our new arrivals hitting in the bottom half of the Hot 100, thus not really shaking things up. And it's all coming from a collaboration between Future and Young Thug. Yes, over half the new arrivals here are from the mixtape Super Slimy. And whatever else we got, well, okay, we're gonna get to it. But fine, we still have our top 10, where Rockstar by Post Malone featuring 21 Savage rules at number 1. And yet there is a part of me that for the first time sees some uncertainty here. Yes, dominance is in on-demand streaming, but it's slipped on sales, it's not dominant on YouTube, and while it is gaining radio, I'm not sure it's gaining fast enough. That's somewhat relevant when you consider that Bodak Yellow by Cardi B is still very much dominant on YouTube, but it's somehow lost even more sales, it's slipping on streaming, and it looks to have finally peaked on the radio. And then with 1-800-273-8255 by Logic featuring Alessia Cara and Khalid, as much as it's still gaining radio, streaming is slipping and the sales are nowhere close to where they need to be to get any higher. What I think is much more likely to make gains is Feel It Still by Portugal the Man at number 4, because it's become a radio juggernaut that's somehow still gaining spins, even if it did kind of slip on sales and streaming is practically non-existent. It's certainly holding its own over Thunder by Imagine Dragons at number 5, which, yes, has the sales and the real airplay momentum and a little bit more streaming, but the question comes whether or not it can narrow that margin fast enough, and I'm not sure that it can. What is definitely making a play is Sorry Not Sorry by Demi Lovato up to number 6, which despite weaker sales has more solvent streaming and airplay that's still pretty potent, despite the gains that seem to slow down a little bit this week. Where things get interesting comes in our first new arrival to the top 10 with real momentum, and where I'm so damn happy to finally say I called this one, Havana by Camila Cabello featuring Young Thug at number 7. I called it as a hit the first time I heard this song, unquestionably her best song to date, and the release of the video was enough to shove this into contention. And that's before you consider her strengths in sales and on the radio. It was enough to knock back Mi Gente by J Balvin, Willie William featuring Beyonce down to number 8, as despite a good sales week, it saw itself overtaken on streaming and the radio. It did stay above Sam Smith with Too Good at Goodbyes down to number 9, where it also got overtaken thanks to radio traction slipping and a poor streaming week, but it now faces some real competition from our second new top 10 arrival, one that I'm a lot less excited about, Perfect by Ed Sheeran at number 10. Look, this is the second coming of Thinking Out Loud if we're being honest. Adult contemporary radio already loves this, and with those sales figures, it will probably have some staying power and will probably get even higher in the top 10. Yay, I guess. What it doesn't have that power comes in our losers and dropouts, and make no mistake, we actually got some big ones in the latter category. Now, the country losses you would expect with the shift in format that comes with the season. Do I Make You Wanna by Billy Currington, They Don't Know by Jason Aldean, and Small Town Boy by Dustin Lynch, which somehow stuck around long enough and high enough to likely make the year-end list for 2017, go figure. But they're also joined by Feels by Calvin Harris, Pharrell, Katy Perry, and Big Sean, and No Promises by Cheat Codes featuring Demi Lovato. The best news, though, is that after a full year on the Hot 100, we have finally got rid of Say You Won't Let Go by James Arthur, a song I have found thoroughly mediocre at best throughout 2017, and at worst, well, let's just say that my own personal year-end lists are quite ready for it. It's just a shame that when you take a look at our losers, you don't really get the same surprises. For one, 2 more country songs took hits that you would expect, with More Girls Like You by Kip Moore down hard to 89 off the boost it had last week, and Heartache on the Dance Floor by John Party down to 95. Then you have songs that have done okay but never really great, like BED by Jacques Keys to 97, and It's a Vibe by 2 Chainz featuring Ty Dolla $ign, Trey Songz, and Jhené Aiko, likely just missing the year-end list at 79. Bit of a shame, it's a real good song. But then we have the 2 big stories to end things off, the first being the odd loss for Relationship by Young Thug and Future to 81. I guess if you're gonna swap it out for better mixtape tracks, it kind of makes sense given that Super Slimy dropped, but you'd also think that the synergy would benefit and would get more spins. But the big story category is the striking losses for Look What You Made Me Do by Taylor Swift, where even good YouTube can't save it from plummeting out of the top 20 to 25. If it keeps dropping at this pace, man, that is not a good sign for that album that's dropping in just over a week. Yikes. Now, in contrast, our gains and returning entries are pretty stable and pretty explainable. The only one in the latter category being Too Much to Ask by Niall Horan, re-entering at 96 because of the album Flicker. I'd prefer really any other song from the record to chart. It is really a pretty great record, but even this, it's not really precisely bad. It's just okay and kind of forgettable. And the gains, by all that measure, they aren't all that objectionable either. I've already talked about Havana breaking into the top 10, but unfortunately, right behind it, and likely to break the top 10 next week, is Gucci Gang by Lil Pump, up to 14. But even really then, that's only the worst here, and even then that song is more obnoxious than outright incompetent or offensive. Our other gains make a fair amount of sense too. Let You Down by NF gains off the debut to 75. Losing Sleep by Chris Young picks up some traction off the album to 63. Don't expect this to last. Like I Loved You by Brett Young gets the easy boost to 67. And No Limit by G-Eazy featuring A$AP Rocky and Cardi B gets up to 30. Likely off of Cardi B just owning the song and her continued boost off of popularity thanks to Bodak Yellow. Hell, if I'm being honest, I'd probably prefer to listen to her than what we've got in our new arrivals. Starting off with number 100, 3 by Future and Young Thug.
On the same boat, women the same though. I put the bin to the 8th stroke, right at the ghetto, forever the leto. Yeah, caught my first body out of Billy Coat. Yeah, 10 real murders from my amigos. Yeah, ride the Cuban link, tied to my knees. Yeah, I just seats, bite your sleeve, yeah.
Okay, one thing that needs to be established right out of the gate is that Future and Young Thug have very different styles and production that puts them at their best as performers, and it's not the same for the both of them. Even though I'm no big fan of either artist, I can like both of them, but for Future it often comes when he's at his darkest and most aggressive and nihilistic, where his rougher delivery can fit when he's in his lower vocal tone. Whereas for Thugger, the more lush and melodically expressive he can be, the better. So inevitably they were gonna have to meet in the middle somewhat, and 3 is the first example of how that might be a bad idea, disposing of a hook entirely for a verse from each of them that fades out abruptly right after Future is done. And I can't be the only one who thinks it sounds really cheap, am I? The thin and seedy synth line with a glaze of autotune that somehow sounds flattened against your bog standard trap beat. And while it does emphasize a rougher tone that could work for Future, it's not great at all for Young Thug, even as he rattles off his luxury porn bragging and failure to realize that Conor McGregor actually lost against Floyd Mayweather. And it's not like Future's got anything more beyond that, and even if I don't mind a lot of the energy he's bringing, it really only seems like it's trying to disguise how often his rhymes don't connect or how little he's actually on the beat on this song. Look, as a whole, it's too flimsy to outright dislike, but it is also utterly forgettable. Next, number 98, Bedroom Floor by Liam Payne.
But your clothes say different on my bedroom floor. You said it was over, you said it was over. But your clothes say different on my bedroom floor. But your clothes say different on my bedroom floor. But your clothes say different on my bedroom floor, yeah.
Not gonna lie, there's a part of me that's still really quite curious where Liam is gonna take his career. Sure, following in the legacy of Justin Timberlake might be the most obvious path for him, but there is definitely a place for that sort of pop star, and Strip It Down was way more likable than I ever expected. So okay, how does his follow-up turn out? Well, credit to him, the production certainly feels like a departure from what I was expecting, courtesy of Charlie Puth of all people. But with the fast-paced thrumming bass groove, the hollow tropical synth tones playing off the hand clap, and the multi-track falsetto that doesn't sound bad, it feels like a sound that Charlie Puth brushed against on his debut, but Liam is far more convincing with, mostly courtesy of something that is only coming to the forefront with every single that he's releasing. Cockiness. Because let's be real, guys like Zayn and Harry, they carry their ego more abstractly. They would never be as direct as someone like Liam is, basically calling this girl out for saying that this isn't a thing between them, even as her clothes are on his bedroom floor, and showing that he's actually willing to push back actively. And this is not something most male pop stars dare to try anymore, mostly because you need charisma and smart framing, and a willingness to play with a ready smirk. One hair off and you come across either like a total asshole or like a creep with without the personality and conviction to properly anchor it. Hi, Charlie Puth. Now, this is the line that Justin Timberlake walked so effectively in the mid-2000s. So, can Liam do it now? Well, he's closer than so many have tried, those few that have, and he's got the easy confidence and swagger really quite down here. But I think overall the production and writing could afford to be a little bit tighter. Have him work with Pharrell and he could very well get there. Okay, Liam, you had my curiosity. Now you got my attention. Looking forward to that debut album because overall, this is pretty good. Check it out. Number 92, For the Gang by Future.
You got booked for controlled substance, I want more drink. It's like a funeral when they see me, cause these hoes faint. I done got used to dead homies, I stay in the bank. Ain't got one more to the shed on me, all my sons straight. I put casino in my wheel, nigga, I'ma doubt this cake.
So here's the other problem with this Future Young Thug super slimy project, or indeed a problem that afflicts so many collaborative projects. Future, he happens to be bigger than Young Thug is, and when you have a project where a few solo tracks have been bundled in for each artist, there is a very real possibility that one artist might chart while the other just won't. Now this happened for both of Future's joints and Super Slime, this being the first one, and well, it sounds like Mask Off Part 2, between the flute anchoring the melody and the clunky bass-driven trap beat. The problem is that Future's a fair bit worse on this than he was on Mask Off, mostly because he seems to be trying to mimic Young Thug's slightly off-kilter melodic digressions to break up the flow. And I'll actually say this isn't a terrible idea, mostly because it prevents Future from dropping into a flat, monotone mumble, and paradoxically, it actually makes his diction better. But at the same time, it's not like he's saying anything that's worth a damn on this song. For as much as this track is reportedly dedicated to his late audio engineer Seth Firkins, the content evolves into just more flexing that barely even mentions that man, which somehow makes it seem all that much worse. That being said, this is a tolerable track, I guess, generally more melodic. I don't mind the production, and even though I think the hook is pretty overwritten and doesn't flow all that well, this is passable, albeit barely. Number 88, Wolves by Selena Gomez and Marshmello.
To get to you, I look for love and every stranger took too much easy anger. All for you, yeah, all for you. I'll be running through the jungle, I'll be crying with the wolves to get to you, to get to you.
So I can't be the only one who thinks that Selena Gomez and that new album might be kind of in trouble, right? Both Bad Liar and Fetish with Gucci Mane underperformed. Hell, her most successful song in 2017 was a collaboration with Kygo on his album, and that feels more like a fluke breakthrough for him than representative of Selena's future success. So it makes sense that her handlers would have her work with another electronic producer. And Marshmello, he's had some recent buzz thanks to his work with Khalid on Silence, so we got this. And really, it's striking just how much this song wants to emulate It Ain't Me in terms of its success, between the slightly blurry guitar line that plays into a heavily multi-tracked hook that builds to electronic breakdown, accented by even more faded out vocals. A few differences though. It Ain't Me was a final goodbye, whereas Wolves is a song that's seeking to build a deeper connection with that partner, recapture something that was lost, and Wolves, well, okay, it's actually pretty good, but it is not great. Look, Marshmello's narrower focus in his synth breakdown probably is to the song's overall advantage. It feels a little bit cleaner, but Kygo's composition was just more diverse, groove-driven, and potent, and the production better highlighted that bounce. I overall think that Kygo might be a better producer than Marshmello is at this point. But still, this is good. Probably the most likable of all the singles that Selena Gomez has released thus far, so yeah, hope it does well. Number 84, Candy Paint by Post Malone.
If you busy plotting on what I got, kick in your door and swat you down. $100,000 on the tabletop. Half price my whip, same price my watch. Got no jumper, but I ball a lot. Bitch on your stony, I do what I want.
I feel like 2017 has left me in the frustrating position with respect to Post Malone, because from everything outside of his music, he seems like a cool dude who seems chill and likable and works with people that I otherwise respect and like. All of which is kind of frustrating because it places me on the outside saying, yeah, but his music's still kind of lousy. But with every additional week that Rockstar spends at number 1, America keeps enabling him to release more singles from his next upcoming project, with this being the second for that record, and folks, I hate to say this, but if you thought Rockstar is gonna be huge, I would put money on Candy Paint being even bigger. Now, there are problems with this song. It's not like Post Malone has stopped his formless bragging and kicking your girl out of his car as soon as she gives him head. That's not exactly good. And you have to wonder whether or not it was a good choice for him to get so aggressive on the second verse, whether or not it fits. But that hook might be the best thing that Post Malone has ever done. I'm not kidding. The ghostly keyboards against the gentle trap beat with the huge swells and misty synth behind him, coupled with the fantastic placement of the backing vocals. The production on this song is goddamn gorgeous. And when you combine it with that melodic cadence and that hook, I would put money on this being really huge. This will probably be bigger than Rockstar. And honestly, I'd be okay with this, because yeah, I really like this song. Number 77, All the Smoke by Future and Young Thug.
We want all the smoke. We want all the smoke. We want all the smoke. We want all the smoke.
It's money turning me on. Hey, it's money turning me on. Turn me on. I'm thinking out loud, but these hunters got a nigga gone. Fuck on. I'm so gone.
Seriously, can I go back to Candy Paint, a song with beautiful production that doesn't need this sort of auto-tune to approximate some form of good delivery? Desaturated pianos that sound barely on key until the bass-driven chunky beat comes in, and Thugger's ad-libs and melodic interpolation somehow sounding even more weedy than ever, which makes them sound painfully unsupported against this sort of production which is not nearly melodic enough. And it's not like the content is good either. This time it seems to focus a little bit more on the violence in between the brand name porn and stealing your girl, but at least Future manages to string together a decent basketball reference, and Thugger brings up the somewhat amusing image of him feeding deer. But beyond that, no, not a fan of all this. Not that good. Number 68, Feed Me Dope by Future.
I got local hoe, but I shipped her out the country though. Ain't no giving up, you already know how I give it up. Sipping out the coffee cup, my presidential face a hockey puck. Feed me dope, I get webby like a boat. Feed me dope. And I started seeing ghosts. I'm off the porch, I'm skipping court. Yeah. Step to my loop, trap in the sport. Skip to me the
And now we got the second solo joint from Future, if you can even really call it that, because it is literally one verse surrounded by two extended hooks. That's it. And okay, by Future standards, I might actually kind of like this the most of what we've heard thus far. The eerie twinkling pianos against the rumbling bass and the faded symphonic atmosphere. It's production that mostly supports some of the darker paranoia that underscores some parts of the verse, but there are some lines that you would have to think Future would be better off just rewriting. Like whenever he mentions skip to my loo, or how he mentions shipping his local girls out of the country, which could very well have a much more sinister intention than he probably intended. But overall, you know, it just feels underdeveloped, but I don't overall mind it. It's passable. Number 62, No Cap by Future and Young Thug.
My last two foreigns put up. Straight out the bank, go put it up. Everybody in the hood gon' pull up. I got them on Zans and the Rocks. The homie that ran with the Dodgers. Every week I change my closet. Got a Fendi store in my house. Got a building garage in my house. Gotta watch my wrist cause a house. My bitch can't sleep at my house. Make her sleep at a hotel now. And when you talk, you talking on cap. And your diamonds they looking like tap.
Okay, with the exception of that faint guitar line at the back, this is a blatant reboot and rip-off of commas between the flows and the same damn shrill sound that punctuated that song, and I hated it there too. Seriously, if you're just gonna do that and not even give us a hook this time around, I'm gonna call you out on recycling your shit, because it's not like the content redeems any of this, because in between the brand name flexing, it almost seems like Future and Young Thug are going out of their way to be assholes to women here, referring to Asian girls as yellow, not letting them sleep in their own house, openly admitting to backstabbing them, and then after you make them quit their jobs, you then give them to your boys before putting them out in rentals, seemingly only for the purpose of you then giving them the presidential later? Yeah, no, put aside the ugliness, it's barely a fragment of a song that is blatantly lifting elements I didn't like from an earlier track. Let's move on. Pass. Number 61, Meant to Be by Bebe, Rexha and Florida Georgia Line.
If it's meant to be, it'll be, baby, just let it be. So won't you ride with me, see where this thing goes. If it's meant to be, it'll be, baby, if it's meant to be.
I've now seen Florida Georgia Line on more pop songs as of late than country tracks. And what's more unnerving is that I'm not even surprised by this, given how their last album seemed to have a casual disinterest in the country format, at least through their production. So why not team up with Bebe Rexha for a single and go pure pop? Maybe it could work, like what happened with Alesso and Haley Steinfeld, which was actually not bad for them. Well, it doesn't really, most because despite being the guest stars, they really dominate the song far more than Bebe Rexha does, handling all but one verse, and their blaring nasal tones overpower a lot of her voice against the minimal piano and leaden trap beat. Yeah, the revving spikes of guitar is alright on the hook in the background, but then we get the lyrics, which seem to place Florida Georgia Line at cross purposes with Bebe Rexha, where they're trying to coax her towards sex and she just wants to, you know what, let it be. And you know what, they don't seem to be getting the message to actually get up and back off. It makes an already kind of generic song feel faintly icky and not one that flatters anyone, so yeah, kind of mediocre. Not digging this. Pass. Number 50, Patek Water by Future and Young Thug featuring Offset.
Hey, what kind of whips that came imported? Oh, you rockin' the prawn set, 40 pointers. Nigga be changing wheels out like new joints. Where you ahead of yourself? You done not did yourself. Can't give me headache. Pull up in a red rave. Be the bitch addis. We so lavish.
So apparently, by some vestige of popular consensus and critical acclaim, this is the song that we all want to hear. And while I could be kind of snide here and said it only really got this high thanks to a Migos member being on it, the truth is that Patek Water is okay, I guess? Look, the more autotune that's piled onto Thugger's warbling, the more exasperating it is for me, especially with the scratchy fragments replacing the hi-hat that are between the faint squealing sound that might count as a melody and the lumpy bass. And again, it's not like Young Thug is all that distinctive or interesting here, and Future's only handling the hook. He's got no verse. Yeah, okay, Offset, he is spitting a little bit harder than usual on his verse. He arguably steals the show with his more violent content, but really, the appeal of the song is that in comparison with so much of Super Slimy, it's a fully composed song with an actual hook, and even then it's just okay. If that's our baseline of quality here, we may have a serious problem. But you know, I gotta say this, probably not as much as what's evidenced by our final song, number 13, Gorgeous by Taylor Swift.
Say anything to your face, 'cause look at your face, and I'm so furious at you for making me feel this way, but what can I say, you're gorgeous.
Now to clarify, I'm not really referring to Taylor Swift herself here. If Reputation turns out to be a bomb, and from the lead-off singles and the marketing rollout, it probably will be to some extent, at least in comparison with other albums, she's got enough personal success and popularity to be just fine if she wants to take off the time to recuperate. Whereas all of our marketing team, the producers, the promotional staff will go right under the nearest bus. But in any case, given how much Look What You Made Me Do has collapsed and how Ready For It remains painfully underwhelming, why the hell they gave that song a video, I will never know. How is our newest track, Gorgeous? Honestly, not impressed. Those hollowed warping synths against the patter of bass, the acoustic touches against a flat snare, don't exactly make for an interesting song or one with production I have heard before. More leaden and lumbering than it clearly thinks it is, and the furthest thing from sexy. And that's kind of a problem, because when you think about the lyrics, Taylor Swift seems to have completely lost the ability to sound genuinely love-struck, which you need for a song like this. The primary emotion anchoring this track is frustrated anger at losing control of her emotions, and a mostly failed attempt to seduce this guy regardless of her current boyfriend, or if he's even single. In a bizarre way, I'm kind of reminded of Kesha's Die Young, but Kesha could at least anchor wistful regret at knowing it just wasn't going to work out and just enjoy the moment of hookup. Whereas a Taylor, it seems way more petulant that she can't nail this gorgeous hot guy, especially when on the second verse, it's clear she's trying to play hard to get. She's not actually putting herself out there. But at the end of the day, I can't really get upset at this, most because it feels like album filler. Unimpressive all around, just not a particularly striking sound or hook, just underwhelming. Again, if I was the promotional staff for Reputation, I would be panicking right now. But in the meantime, best and worst of the week, well, the worst is easy with no cap, with 3 taking dishonorable mention, both from Young Thug and Future. But the best? it's actually a bit of a tight race here, but I think Selena Gomez and Marshmello just edge out Liam Payne with Wolves, with the best of the week going to Candy Paint by Post Malone. Yeah, I'm sure you're surprised. I'm as personally stunned as anyone, but seriously, that hook, that production, this song is probably justifiably gonna be huge, and yeah, I'm a fan of it. I've been listening to it all day. Let's see how it all falls out next week. Only 2 more weeks until the Billboard year ends, but until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.